Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who is developing a skill for watching two games at once. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Taylor Two Screens Rockwell, hello.
Hello, yeah, it's just panic and fear back and forth over and over and over again.
It's hard, right?
It really
is.
It's
hard. The thing we have found is to watch both at once, but then go back and watch them individually.
Yes.
Today we were doing that. This morning we were doing that with Group F. So we should warn you, spoilers come in if you don't know, for all the games in Group F. Let's get straight into it.
Let's do it.
Mexico lost 3-0 to Sweden. It
did
did not go well. We're going to break that down. But they got away with it because Germany lost 2-0 to Korea.
They did.
I think is the bigger shock in many, many ways.
I think so. I think
not really going out on a limb there, am I?
No, not really, because it's the defending champions being eliminated in the group stage, and it's also defending champions that I think most people had at least making the semifinals.
Yeah.
So to have them already eliminated, because I think we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but in reality, if you told Mexican fans before this tournament started, you all are going to go through second place in your group, you're going to win 2 games, but you're going to finish behind a European team, you would think like, oh yeah, okay, so we lose to Germany, we win our next 2, we go through anyway. So it's
almost as if the World Cup is not that simple.
almost.
Should we get into Sweden, Mexico?
Sure.
I think we have a good read on what happened in this game. Here's my read. Juan Carlos Osorio should have done some rotaciones.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
It's weird to say that, but he started the same lineup as he did against Korea, and we thought that was interesting because we expected at least a few changes, especially some changes to deal with the height and physicality of Sweden.
Which, by the way, sounds too simplistic, but when we watch this game back, it's a major part of it, right?
Yep.
Sweden seemed to win every single ball in the air, attacking and defending.
And it seems like what Juan Carlos Osorio's Mexico decided to do instead was, rather than try to challenge them physically, I think your point may have been, you're just not going to win that, or maybe they thought they weren't going to win that.
So my thinking is that Juan Carlos Osorio's thinking is just putting Raul Jimenez in there doesn't solve the problem, right? Because like Herrera and Guardado are still not winning balls in midfield, and you know what I mean. You would need like a whole new Serbia-looking lineup to compete with Sweden. So don't even fight them at that game. Let's fight them on the ground instead.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and so
which makes sense. I understand that decision.
Absolutely, so do I. It feels like there's one analogy I can think of, and it is a massive disaster. So we're not going to go that route, but it feels like he had a plan, right? He talked about after the Chile disaster and the Copa America Centenario that he had like plans A, B, C, and D, and if A wasn't working, he could switch to B. But it feels like he kind of never thought about it from the perspective of, well, what if we just have an opponent who's going direct and is physical? Maybe we should do the same. Instead, it felt like, okay, we'll play high-pressure, high-intensity soccer in the beginning. We'll put them under pressure. We'll cut off the service at its source. Well, that didn't work. Okay, well, now we'll try
and stop Sweden going long. Yeah, they did try that, but it seemed like that any Swedish player could play that direct ball, and any Swedish forward, Berg or Toivonen, could win the ball in the air.
Yeah, it just felt like, to allude to the thing that I'm talking about, it felt like he never thought about it being freezing in Florida. And so he sort of like never thought about it being a possibility that just another opponent playing direct and over the top would be effective soccer. I think he thought, like, we don't need to deal with that. If they played over the top, then it's going to be a 50-50 challenge. Even if they win the initial one, we'll make sure that we've got people kind of picking up the scraps off of that initial challenge. But Sweden are very good at going direct. We saw that both live and then when we watched the tactical cam, and it felt like any of his 4 plans didn't really address that issue.
So what was Mexico's attacking plan? Because it seemed to me that they decided we're not going to cross it in, right? They weren't going to cross it to Chicharito to compete in the air with Lindelof and Granqvist, right? Which is smart because that's not going to work. I think maybe they were thinking Chicharito could sneak in behind and they could get him in behind to beat them for pace. Or they tried to go down the wings. Or they would try to play through the middle. And none of that seemed done. No. What I kept seeing, and when we rewatched it, is Mexico looking for an opening that was never, ever there. Yeah. And we know Mexico have great attacking players, so why was that opening never, ever there? Why were all the doors to the Swedish house closed?
Because the Swedes are very good at closing the doors
to
the house. Yeah, I mean, it was rigidly a 4-4-2 defensively, and you had,
which sounds simple, but there's a bit more to it.
I mean, it sounds simple until you have to do it. And if you're the right midfielder who's sprinted forward to try to get on the end of a cross, and it doesn't, you can't quite get there in time, and it rolls all the way back to the goalkeeper, and you're 40 yards out of position. We saw Swedish players 40 yards out of position, not be 40 yards out of position 5 seconds later.
Specifically, the right midfielder, right? Carlson would turn around and get back in his shape.
Clausen. Yeah, he would like, but it was just how quickly it wasn't. It was like the computer was in charge, that it was like autopilot as soon as that didn't come off, and they were just like straight back like a machine into their shape, so that there was never any opportunity.
I would also argue it's not as simple as just standing there in shape, right? They were nice and tight, right? There wasn't a big distance ever between the centre-backs and the forwards, and they were never stretched wide either. But I think it was about constantly blocking Mexican passes. So it wasn't so much pressure in the ball. A little bit Icelandic, a little bit like we talked about with Iceland against Argentina. It was more about standing between the Mexican player and where he's going to try and pass the ball. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, I think it absolutely
Close
is.
all the doors.
And then I think the other key part of this is that, again, they backed themselves in the air to such a degree.
Sweden,
that they didn't have a problem stepping forward. And it really would be, we watched a couple sequences like this. Mexico have possession around midfield, but there's nothing on. So they drop it back to a center back, but it goes back 5 yards. When that pass from the Mexican player goes back 5 yards, that Swedish defense step 5 yards. When it goes back another 3 yards, the Swedish defense steps 3 yards.
And crucially, when the defense steps 3 yards, the midfield steps 3 yards, the forward step 3 yards. It was very much a tight unit.
Yeah, and
it's like there was like an imaginary rope around all of them so they could all move together as one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, kind of. Yeah, they did the Mighty Ducks training. But then the key point for me was once it drops back, not that it always did, but whenever it would drop back to Ochoa, that's when that Swedish line is at midfield. And you would think, like, Granqvist is a very good player. I very much enjoyed everything I've seen from him, but he's not a pacey player. And you would think, really? Like, you're going to get into a situation where you're going to let... But I think, again...
You're going to foot race Chicharito?
That's where they just think, we'll step in front, we'll have one behind, we'll win these balls in the air every time, and they pretty much did.
So Mexico did have some of what I believe Juan Carlos Osorio calls his synchronizations. The thing I saw the most was Chicharito standing next to the centre-backs, Lindelof and Granqvist, but then he would suddenly... And I think he did this a bit against Germany in the first game, sprint from next to the centre-backs into midfield, like he would come and drop to get the ball, and then Carlos Vela would come in and try and take the space that Chicharito had just occupied, right? In best case scenario, when Chicharito goes deep, he drags a central defender with him, right? So maybe Lindelof comes out of position, and then Vela goes into the space left behind.
Yeah.
But Sweden just were not biting, right?
No,
so when Chicharito sprinted deep, they just waved him off. All right, see you in a minute, and then Vela comes and replaces him and say, "Oh, hey, you're the other guy. All right, we'll beat you in the air instead."
Which again, it speaks to the discipline. But I would equate it with, like, if I have a wall in front of me, and my idea for getting through the wall is like, I'm going to draw on that wall, and then like that doesn't do anything. It's like, well, I'm going to
run away from that wall and see if it comes with me.
The drawing didn't work. Now I'm going to paint on it. Now I'm going to like use some like it feels like this is what I get back to with Juan Carlos Osorio's plan A, plan B, plan C. It felt like they were all somewhat like derivatives of the one that came before. And it felt like it was like, okay, this type of passing isn't working. We'll try this type of passing.
So it's more A1, A2, A3.
Yeah, and so it seems as though the Swedish defense in the midfield particularly knew, okay, at some point they're going to start switching. It's going to be Vela charging through. It's going to be Chicharito dropping in. So when Chicharito drops, just let him go. And if he gets the ball, fine. He's 40 yards from goal. And they were not concerned with that run, so they didn't get pulled out of position.
So should we talk about Sweden's goals?
Yes.
All right. The first goal is oddly scored by their left back, Augustinsson.
Yes.
But it starts
Ludvig Augustinsson. I love that name.
It's a good name, right? It sounds very like he's a composer from the 17th century. Maybe earlier.
I think anytime you name your kid Ludwig, it's pretty clear where that inspiration is coming from.
They must have been very surprised when he was a left back. So it starts with, I don't know how long the spell is, but it's Mexico trying to probe, trying to find a way through. The ball ends up, they can't find a way through because Sweden, again, have closed all the doors to their house. The ball gets worked all the way back, and it's Gallardo, the left back, has it in a weird central position and tries to find a pass. I think he tries to play it into an advanced midfielder, I'm not sure who. Marcus Berg, Swedish striker, just deflects that pass. The ball pops loose. Sweden have it, and they're somewhat away, right? It's not really a rapid counter-attack, but it's at least pass it forward to Berg, he lays it on, and we move forward, and we move forward, and we move forward.
That's a key point, yeah, because it's not Berg and Toivonen not pacey, I would say, but that doesn't mean they can't play quickly. And it did seem like every
the ball
time,
is faster than your feet, no matter who you are.
Thanks, goal.
Yeah.
And Rutger, no, he's in the second one. I forget who the coach is the first. But in this one, it felt like, again, from the tactical cam, you can see it really vividly. When Sweden win the ball back, it's one touch.
That contrast is too high on our monitor.
Yeah, perfect. When Sweden win the ball back, it's one touch, play it upfield. One touch, play it wide. That person plays that first time. And they might not be fleet of foot, but they pass so quickly that I think Mexico, who have already been caught in a state of transition and maybe weren't ready for this quick counterattack, then it's a lot of like, oh, they're possessing the ball, moving forward fast. We're trying to just put out options wherever we can. And so it's a lot of panic
scrambling.
defending.
And I think the panic defending, the best example of this is Salcedo's clearance.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Salcedo manages to step and get...
I remember it in the sense that I'm going to say clearance in air quotes. Yeah.
He just volleys it straight up. I think he slices it, basically. It goes straight up in the air. And I actually think this is the key to the goal.
Yep.
Because before he does that, he's got an eye on the advancing Augustinsson. When he slices the ball up in the air, understandably, I'm going to say, he's very concerned about where that ball's going.
Yep.
Right? Because that's possibly a huge area that's his mistake. And then Augustinsson, Ludwig, is able to...
Just say Ludwig, yeah.
Ludwig is able to drift away from him.
Ludwig van Leftback is what you should go with.
Ludwig van Leftback.
Yeah.
He's able to be wide open when the ball eventually gets recycled around, right? I've forgotten who crosses it in. I think it's Klaassen or Larsen. Mm-hmm. It's one of the Arsens.
It's Klaassen, yeah.
Klaassen crosses it in.
Who then stands there, hands above his head before anybody makes contact with it. He seems very confident it's going to be a goal.
I mean, it wasn't a bad ball, especially he was aiming for what? Toivonen?
Yes.
Toivonen takes a swing and a miss.
Yep.
But it lands with Augustinsson Ludwig van Leftback at the far post. He's able to smash it past a Mimo Ochoa, who could not have done much more, I don't think.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough in that situation because he's having to... I think he thinks... Actually, I can't remember if it's Klaassen or Toivonen who misses that first chance, so maybe it's not Klaassen. But either way, I think when you're set up to defend that first shot and then it spills to the person who's now wide open at the other side, you're the goalkeeper, you're flying over just trying to make any play. That he gets a hand to it is commendable, but he's never going to be able to stop it.
I've just realised I have my notes. It's Berg that crosses the ball.
There it is.
Then it's Klaassen that
who whiffs
hits it. Does he miss it entirely?
I think so.
Or at least just like spoons it in a way that it just carries on its journey to the far post, and Augustinsson that finishes at the far
there we
post.
Go.
We're very pedantic on the Top Soccer Show. We like to make sure to get the players right. All right, 1-0.
Yep.
1-0 to Sweden. I still thought, all right, Mexico can tie this up. It'd be okay. It's only 1-0. It's still
I think a lot of this was
like Homer Simpson with the pig.
I think a lot of this was predicated on the idea that we both just assumed Germany were going to score at some point.
Yep.
And so it felt like, oh boy, Sweden need one more to put themselves in like safety. Mexico have to pull one back. We just kept expecting Germany to score, and at a certain point it felt like, oh, maybe they're both going to be okay. But yes, this is where it felt like it was getting real desperate for Mexico.
And especially on the rewatch, this is where Sweden win a penalty kick, which Granqvist scores. On the rewatch, this is a Swedish, I'm going to call it a counter-attack, right? They essentially, Toivonen tackles Herrera, and Sweden are away. But they mess up. It's Toivonen himself, right? Messes up the forward pass because Forsberg is going to his left. He's wide. He's pretty much open. Forsberg was annoyed when he didn't get the ball. Toivonen goes to Berg instead. Berg takes a not great touch, takes him away from goal. This counter-attack was dying.
It was done.
Until Hector Moreno slides in and takes Berg's leg out. Yeah.
And I understand why you would feel like you've got to try to make a play if you're Hector Moreno, but the reality is you should be able to assess the situation and recognize that Berg has taken a really heavy touch. There's no way he's going to be able to shoot. If he does, it's going to go well wide or right at the goalkeeper. It's one of those angles.
Moreno was parallel with him, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have to make a panic tackle. He could have just, at the very least, shepherded him a bit wider and maybe the play just restarts in some way. I mean, it wasn't a direct threat.
No, it would have been Berg cutting to the outside and waiting for an overlapping run for it to be crossed in. That's an easier situation to defend than a quick counter. But I think Hector Moreno just wants to make a play. He feels like maybe there's a chance it ends in something, so he goes to ground, leaves his feet, makes contact. And I think Berg is very happy to have been bailed out with this penalty decision. Because it was, I'm not saying
we might be the only people talking about how Berg got this wrong.
Yes, because I'm not saying
he's fine with that.
I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty when I say bailed out. I mean that he messed this play up and that it ended with a goal anyway. I think he will be very relieved about.
Am I right in saying that Hector Moreno gets a yellow card for this and will miss Mexico's round of 16 game?
You are correct.
Ooh, so that could have a lot of repercussions because he's their best surviving defender, right? Non-injured centre-back.
Yep.
All respect to Araujo and Reyes, who could not be there. All right, so
maybe they should try to sign Granqvist, the centre-back for Sweden, who dispatches this penalty with a calmness that I did not expect to see.
I don't want to insult you, Taylor, but that is not how the World Cup works.
It's not? But you can't just sign people up?
But I agree with you.
Get him on that plane.
This is a wonderful penalty kick from Granqvist. I did not have confidence in him stepping up. And I think the theme of us watching Sweden so far is me underestimating Granqvist and you being very comfortable with his talents.
Yeah. I think I thought he was going to be very good. Like, I knew all of the previews heading into the World Cup were, they used those like marshals the defense, organizes the defense, leads the defense. So I knew he was going to be pivotal in how they defended.
Yeah.
I did not expect to see him getting so many shots on goal.
He's striding out of the back all the
time.
time.
He's got 2 penalties now.
Yeah.
I mean, and he looked dominant going forward. He looked dominant in the air. I think he is that sort of calming presence for Sweden, and I also think it's a good reminder that the best teams in the world tend to have very settled center-back partnerships.
Yep. I'd also say Granqvist looks like a guy. If you play in your local league, he looks like the older guy that plays, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're gonna go after this guy."
Yeah.
And then he tackles everybody and strolls up the field like Beckenbauer.
You're going to be very surprised when Mexico start a balding Swedish man in their defense next game.
Well, okay. Since we mentioned this, why no Rafa Marquez in this game?
I mean, I would have enjoyed that from prediction standpoints.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, other than that maybe Juan Carlos Osorio didn't back him to deal with some of the physicality of Sweden, or didn't think he offered enough of a change to be able to deal with like going up for aerial challenges, and so maybe it made more sense just to go with a more pacey athletic lineup, if that makes any sense, as opposed to Rafa Marquez, who can get into battles, obviously, but I don't know if he's going to beat Granqvist in the air, say.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. All right. Final goal.
Yep.
Goal number 3 for Sweden.
For Sweden.
For me, a lot of this is about, I believe it's pronounced Thielen, the striker who came on. There is a ball from a free kick. I think it's Ludwig van Leefbach, Augustinsson, just like floats up this ball to the back post from a free kick. It's not really a great ball, and yet somehow he's still up there and wins it. Sweden get a throw in from that, right? I don't know who takes the throw in, but Thielen flicks it on, and it turns a medium throw into a long throw by him winning the flick on. And then it's essentially Toivonen and Alvarez at round about the middle of the 6-yard box, right? And neither of them gets a foot to it, but Alvarez gets a hand to it.
He does.
And deflects it past Ochoa.
He does.
Which I think you could, the way I've just described it, you can easily classify this, I think, correctly as just Mexico being unable to deal with a throw and some height.
Yep. And I think, strangely, given, it's surprising to say this, given that they lost 3-0 and it seems like there are lots of problems. I think Alvarez is a big problem for Juan Carlos Osorio for the next game, because I think if he had the full lineup and nobody suspended, I think Alvarez is dropped and Salcedo moves over, because
Salcedo right back, and then like Reyes or Araujo would have been the centre back. Yeah,
because we've talked about this is it ends up being an own goal. It flicks off of his hand, which you can't really fault him for, other than to say that it's him not necessarily being in control of his body and kind of trying to get back into a position where he maybe should have been. If he's there already and standing up, then it's just a clearance. But it's also worth noting he fails to track Augustinsson for the first goal. He basically gets sucked inside, isn't paying attention to the back post. You see him trying to make up that distance at the end, frantically blaming other people around him.
Yeah.
But 2 goals come from that right back spot. That's one that I feel like Juan Carlos Osorio, previous iterations, maybe would have tried to change. I don't know what he does now, especially with Moreno suspended.
So Mexico maybe need to tighten up going into the round of 16.
Yeah.
But 2 guys who don't need to tighten up are Darrell and Taylor, thanks to today's sponsor, Grip 6 Belts.
That is not the transition I thought you were going to go with, but I like yours more because it's more positive. Yes, Grip 6 Belts. I'm wearing mine now because they have arrived. I have mine. You also have yours. Darrell has shown me his belt and his belly button all at the same time.
The second part was accidental. I meant to show you the belt. Yeah, so you heard us talk about Grip 6 Belts, GRIP 6, the number 6 belts, maybe 2 or 3 shows ago. In the meantime, our belts have arrived and we got to try them out, and they are, as promised, maybe even better.
Yeah, lightweight. They really... I was wearing a different belt. I switched them out. I could not feel the belt buckle anymore, which is a nice thing, because if you're sitting all day, as we have been for these games, we try to stand sometimes, but mostly sitting. It can get, if you got a belt buckle that's not quite right, it's not that comfortable.
So, in some ways, I didn't know how much I enjoy not feeling the belt buckle. Right? It's very, very lightweight, no holes, no flaps. And it is this, I think of this as proper American ingenuity in the good old-fashioned way, where not everything has to be a new app or digital, right? Someone can invent a thing or a process.
A seafood app.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where you just make something that exists but make it better.
8 types of octopus, yes.
That's what Grip 6 did in Utah, in the Founders Garage. They invented this new type of belt where the webbing grips the buckle, so everything is nice and lightweight and tight. Love it.
They continue to manufacture all of their belts inside the United States.
Yep, in Draper, Utah, no less.
And I do enjoy that it's you don't have the holes, you don't have the loops, so you don't have like a flap sticking out. You can hide the flap behind the rest of the belt. If that doesn't make sense, then you should get one. And with the belt comes a diagram of how to use the belt properly.
Yes, I would say I'm quite proud we figured it out on our own. When ours arrived in the office, we sort of had a moment of okay, so this goes through here and this goes through here.
It's kind of my tradition of not reading the instructions and then figuring it out and then being like, oh, they were instructions the whole time.
I think I like feeling the validation when you finally read the instructions. Like, oh, we were right. It just took us a little longer than it might have. If you don't believe
Daryl was
us,
trying to wear it as a necktie, to be fair.
If you don't believe us about how great the belts are, then check out their reviews. You can look on Amazon or Facebook or anywhere else. They average at least 4.5 stars out of 5. Over 3,000 positive reviews and a #1 highest customer satisfaction for a belt company on Trustpilot.
So if you want to try them out, you can get 15% off your order by entering the promo code TSS by going to grip6.com. That's GRIP, the number 6.com.
And it was TSS for 15% off. Thank you to Grip6, American made, for sponsoring today's Total Soccer Show.
Indeed. Now, the transition I thought you might go with was at least Mexico have to worry about who they can play in the next round and what personnel they'll be playing, because that is not a concern for the German national team.
It is not. So, Germany needed, at least a point? Needed a win or a point against Korea. They got a defeat. They lost 2-0 to Korea. Both of Korea's goals come in stoppage time, basically, right? 90-something and 96th. But the most worrying thing is not just that they lost, it was that they couldn't score for the first 90 minutes. I've just realised they needed a win, right? They absolutely needed a win, and that's why they were so desperate towards the end. So I would like to talk about what went wrong for Germany today, because this is, with Argentina staying in, this is the big upset of the World Cup so far, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Germany not making it out of the group stage, World Cup champions.
Yeah, brackets busted all over the place.
That's right. How did it happen? Why couldn't Germany score against Korea?
I don't know, because I fell asleep 7 times trying to watch this game.
We watched it. We half watched it once.
I didn't really, by the way.
We half watched it once while we were watching Mexico, Sweden. We properly watched it again to try and figure out what happened. And it is a rough game of soccer to watch. Right? It is a rough game of soccer to watch. I would say it's the reason for the game being hard to watch is half Korea's fault and half Germany's fault.
There's a little bit of the elements thrown into it as well.
Oh, it was humid, right? Yeah. It was very humid in Kazan. Is that the deal?
Tropical climate is what I kept seeing it described as.
Interesting, yeah. So, I mean, do you want to start with Germany or do you want to start with Korea?
Whichever you prefer.
Oh, you're not making it easy for me. Let's start with what Korea did,
sure.
The obstacles they put up for Germany to try and overcome.
Right.
I would argue that Korea went very, very narrow. I kept seeing the whole Korean team when they were defending a German possession or attack being not much more spread out than the width of the penalty area.
Yep.
So often the width of their whole team was about, 18 yards? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think with that comes a compactness as well, because it's not just about getting numbers in there, it's about where they are. And I think it was Stu Holden. Was Stu Holden doing the commentary? I believe he was.
Yes.
He correctly pointed out.
Holden.
Yeah, he correctly pointed out that they very quickly switched from a 4-5-1 to a 5-4-1. They dropped another defender in.
Yeah.
They made it really difficult for Germany to ever find any options through the middle. But I kind of also think Germany made it difficult for Germany to find any options through the middle.
Please say more about that.
I didn't see much. I saw a lot of running from Timo Werner. Timo Werner today,
he's a good example, I think.
I don't know why I feel bad saying this about him, because I don't know why, but Timo Werner to me was a great example of work smart, not hard. And I kept seeing him make lots and lots of runs and peeling off and trying to run in behind.
You mean someone who needs that advice, not someone who did work smart?
No, it's somebody who needs that advice, because he ran a lot and he put in a lot of effort, but effort in and of itself doesn't get anything done.
Yep.
And it didn't feel like there was any sort of plan to use his running or to combine with him making those runs. Maybe that's not necessarily on him, but it's a good example in my mind of a player who is trying very hard, but if you're not trying as a unit to make something happen, it ends up feeling very individual.
So I saw a lot of Timo Werner, and bear in mind Korea are very centralized and very deep, right? So they're all in their own area and quite compact.
Yep.
Timo Werner just trying to run at people and take a shot. And you would often see him, snatching at shots in a somewhat tense shoulders, tight shoulders kind of way. So the shot was just, the technique was all off and he'd just strike it wide. Or he'd just hit it into a load of Korean legs that were in the way. And you never saw him, I'm not saying 0 times, but not enough times did you see him try to play a quick 1-2 with Mesut Ozil or combine with Marco Reus or do something that would find a way through all those Korean players.
I don't disagree. I want to clarify. I'm not saying this is therefore it's Timo Werner's fault. I'm saying we could have started.
He's just one example.
We could have started with any number of players on this team. Yeah, because I think to your point, Mesut Ozil, you saw the reasons why Yogi Löw maybe didn't start him in the second game. It felt like he was kind of reverted to I'll play some crosses in, I'll kind of move the ball around slowly. It didn't feel like you saw that level of enthusiasm and energy.
This is why this game was weird to me. I saw Mesut Ozil received the ball either right at the, like maybe 10 yards outside the top of the box, anywhere across there, right? Centre, left, right. He would pick his head up and he would use his left foot to float or to swing across in. And it seemed Korea were quite happy to let him do that. There was no pressure on him to stop him doing that. But none of his crosses really connected with anyone. There was one where Mats Hummels shouldered it over the bar. But apart from that, right? And it's partly that there were no runners on the end of it.
That's
it wasn't
the
like
key
a whole,
thing for me.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, because I think, sorry to interrupt you, but to your point, like the one that Hummels has late in the game that he ends up heading over with his shoulder somehow, that starts with Hummels running from outside the box and in. And I think part of what Korea's game plan was that I felt like Germany did not adapt to was that they were happy to let Germany cross the ball in from the channel, provided it wasn't in transition. That if Germany had slowly moved the ball down and maybe they did like an overlapping run and they played the ball in, by that point Korea had collapsed in and had defenders in the box, but Germany had also already made their runs. And it felt like by the time that those crosses came in, Joshua Kimmich had like 4 or 5 in the first half. They just had all the players standing there. And it's no longer...
So the runs were over.
Yeah, it's no longer making that run from deep where maybe you catch the defense by surprise. It's a lot of, okay, we're both in here now and we're going to both jump up in the air and we're going to try to beat each other. And even if you win that header, most of the time it's contested, so it's going to go over or wide or you're not going to get it cleanly. And it didn't feel like there was a variety of runs off the ball when Germany were looking to cross.
And the only guy who you would think is a challenger in the air, like who's going to establish some aerial dominance, Mario Gomez, did not start the game. Nope. Timo Werner started as the centre forward. I think in hindsight, just to go back on Timo Werner 1 second, is Werner needs space to run in behind to be maximum effectiveness.
Yeah.
If you got a defence sitting really deep and you're just crossing balls in, Timo Werner's not your guy. Timo Werner's not your guy. So Gomez comes in, but still it's too static second half, and they can aim balls at him, but Korean centre-backs are going to head it away most of the time.
Yogi Low has earned like the trust, I guess, for us. Like I feel weird being like, this is all Yogi Low's fault. It feels almost like sacrilegious to say that, given what he's done for Germany.
Yep.
But if you switch this and it's Jorge Sampaoli coaching Germany, this is 100% we would be going all in on how he got this wrong. Because think about what we've heard about Germany going in and throughout this tournament, that it was a split locker room, there were divided opinions allegedly, that there was like feuding factions, that he had made some choices that had angered some people. He had not brought in some other players.
And so just to go to the core of it, it seems like the lack of Leroy Sané, Leroy Sané not being included, seems to be one of the flashpoints that there are there's a divide in the squad of players who, basically the younger players thought the older players possibly should have encouraged Yogi Löw more to include Leroy Sané in the squad, right?
But then look at his selection. So he goes with the team he goes with against Mexico, doesn't get that right, so then he kind of like reverts to a more traditional Yogi Löw team is a way you could put that. That doesn't go well, and then suddenly we're back to this other team. It just felt like it was, again, if that were Jorge Sampaoli, we'd be like, oh man, this guy has no idea what his best team is. He has no idea what his best formation or approach is. They're just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Didn't he kind of admit that his starting 11 was wrong when he brought in Gomez and Muller in the second half?
But even then, yes, he did. So you put Gomez in to try to get on the end of some crosses. You put Thomas Muller in because Thomas Muller is Thomas Muller, although he wasn't Thomas Muller in this tournament. Whew, that was a lot of Thomas Mullers. But it's still...
And Muller, goodbye.
It was. But it still felt like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try that other thing that I tried the other game.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt like throwing, like really just trying different things. I can't say throwing stuff against the wall twice. But it felt like kind of trying the same things and expecting different results, even as the other team wasn't changing what they were doing.
And can we talk about Toni Kroos?
Sure.
So Toni Kroos, the hero in the 95th minute against Sweden, but he had also given the ball away for Sweden's goal, right, against Sweden.
And had, by all accounts, had one of his worst performances for Germany.
And we all recognise him as one of the greatest midfielders in the world right now. What I saw from him in this game and throughout this group stage for Germany was Toni Kroos coming and playing what I would call left centre-back.
Yep.
Right? Germany had a back two both times, but those two would shuffle over a little bit, and Toni Kroos would come and play left centre-back in a weird way. I think just the idea was, let's get Toni Kroos on the ball. Let's get him to receive the ball there. I kept seeing that. But then you've got your central midfielder has literally come and played left centre-back. There's one fewer midfielders, right? And maybe Marco Reus, left winger, could come and fill central midfield where Toni Kroos was. But then there's one fewer left wingers. And I feel like that is part of the problem, is that Germany's shape was weirdly too much tilted towards just get Tony on the ball and he'll figure something out.
Yeah.
And in the end, that's how Korea score.
Yes, and I'm sorry to mess up your segue, but I want to make one more point about what you're talking about, which is that like it almost felt to me like Yogi Low had this idea, or Toni Kroos, probably Yogi Low had this idea of, okay, we'll pull Toni Kroos back. He'll be a left center back almost, and we'll be able to control possession there. But then Korea are obviously going to send a player out, and if they don't, then we'll send another player into the middle. And now we've got an overload. And Korea were just sort of like, no, okay, he can have the ball.
Yeah,
and then like Marco Reus can come inside. We've already got men here.
It's like Sweden, Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Where you're trying to pull players out, and they just refuse to be pulled.
Yeah,
like, no, I'm very comfortable where I am.
But it still felt like they thought, oh, this is going to work eventually. And at the end of the day, and then I want to talk about what Korea did, but at the end of the day, it really did feel like what we were saying in the Mexico-Sweden game, that we kept expecting Germany to score. It just felt like Germany were sort of like, we're Germany, we'll figure it out. And they just kept waiting to be Germany until 5 minutes to go when suddenly things are not good.
Speaking of not good, so Toni Kroos is...
I think I got us back there.
He receives the ball. I think I got us back there. He receives the ball, and it's in his own half. He's in the left centre-back-ish spot. He's trying to get Germany going. It's the 90-somethingth minute. You can see him stutter, looking for a pass. In the end, he basically forces it. He hits, I can't remember the player's name, but number 2 for Korea.
In the bread basket?
In the bread basket is what John Strong calls, if we're being more specific, directly between the legs, right? But he hits a hard pass directly between this poor player's legs. And that is a major sacrifice from that player, because from that, Korea win the ball back. They drive at Germany on a counter-attack, and they win a corner kick. Then there's a long stoppage while we check on number 2. Then Korea score from this corner kick. This is one of the most confusing goals conceded I've ever seen, but I think that the goal is also Toni Kroos' fault in the end.
Oh, it definitely is Toni Kroos' fault in the end, because on the surface it's very confusing because there's a ball in, there's lots of bodies. It seems like the player's offside. In reality, it's basically Toni Kroos, I think, spots players coming in. He wants to make sure that nobody gets a clean shot on goal. He's facing his own goal, so he tries to poke it away from the advancing runner, pokes it through the legs of Nikasula into the path, or just straight to a Korean player who scores.
Kim, number 19, Kim, is really left with, he's inside the 6-yard box with the ball, and Germany looks so confused at what's just happened that he has time to just take a touch and put it in. Way too easy. I think maybe they think they've caught him offside, but Toni Kroos knows that it was Toni Kroos that played the ball. And if it's a defender deliberately playing the ball, you cannot be in an offside position.
And it's telling that he never raises his hand for offside. He just looks mortified. And even there's a shot where all the Korean players are protesting, and Toni Kroos kind of walks past in the foreground, and he just looks like, I know what I've done. Like he looks guilty and is trying to walk away before everybody catches him.
And just to give today's hero his full due, number 2 is Lee.
All right.
Okay, then Germany go for it. Germany sent everybody forward. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Manuel Neuer ends up playing basically left wing. He receives a throw-in, takes a heavy touch, because he's, even though everybody says, oh, Manuel Neuer could play outfield, the key is, they always say, he could have played outfield in the 3rd division.
I'm annoyed that you stole my joke.
There are not many, Regionalliga Bundesliga players playing at the World Cup. And so Manuel Neuer, heavy touch, under pressure. He is tackled by number 8 for Korea, whose name is Ju. Tackled by Ju, who I think shoots. Right? I'm pretty sure
he's 100% shooting,
From his own right back area, shoots at goal.
That's a good foot, man.
It's almost on target.
It is.
It's almost on target, but luckily
Son is there.
Son Heung-min is there to track it down and finish it. Not offside because...
Oh, he came in from his own half.
From his own half when the ball was played.
Which I was interested in, because I think Nicolas Sula was still back. So he... then you would think, oh, well, someone would have been onside because Nicolas Sula was still maybe a couple yards away.
There's no goalkeeper, right?
Exactly. You made that point.
It's 2 players.
You have to have 2 players. But since he came from his own half, onside, 2-0 to Korea. And I have to say, we didn't mention this earlier. I'm especially amazed by that result and the fact that Korea kept Germany goalless, because they were missing their captain. They were missing Ki, who is the player who drops in and is a 3rd centre-back when need be.
But more of a spread passes around 3rd centre-back than head the ball away.
True.
So maybe this worked out in their favour in a way.
It's possible.
Well, okay, so this is terrible for Germany. Obviously. Maybe we'll talk about that more in a second. For Korea... much like for, say, Saudi Arabia beating Egypt in the final game, this is a great moment that you get to go out swinging, right?
Look at the way they celebrated.
Happy memories. They celebrated like they were through to the round of 16.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, They beat the defending world champions. It's not a result that I think most people would have expected. To go into this game having not won, having been defeated in your first 2 games, to come out with 3 points and win over Germany. That's pretty good.
So we don't know what's going to happen next for Germany. We might assume that Jogi Löw, even though he has a long-term contract, will be replaced
2022.
Ooh, but I'm going to guess late July.
Renewed in May.
Yeah, I know. Never do that, people. Never do that. There may be a clause in there, for one thing. We're going to assume Löw goes, and we're going to assume maybe a new coach, maybe a whole new refresh of the German national team, right?
Jurgen Klinsmann is more than available.
Jurgen Klopp, maybe. Hold on to your butts, Liverpool fans. One thing I want to say is, I believe this was noted on the screen, so this isn't like some genius insight from me, but we definitely have a pattern of win the World Cup, hold on to too many players, hold over too many players, lose heavily next go round and exit in the group stage. That's Italy, 2006 champions, 2010 out in the group stage with a lot of the same players. Spain, 2010 champions, out in the group stage 2014. Germany, 2014 champions, out in the group stage 2018.
Even before that, France 98 out in 2002.
Yes.
And then Brazil knocked out in the quarterfinals after winning it in 2002. So that was the best result of any of the 5 most recent champions.
So my theory is that essentially...
Don't win the World Cup?
Well, win the World Cup, but then maybe... refresh, right? If you don't win, if it's not looking like, it's hard to know, right? You don't know until it happens.
Das good reboot.
But it just really seems to me that you can hold on to too many of the names that won the World Cup when maybe you needed a bigger refresh, and that's what hurts you in the end.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, this is my advice to Germany.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll take it. I'm sure they'll be soliciting opinion. It's what they do when things go wrong. I'm going to guess, though. I'm going to guess.
From American Soccer Podcast.
Yeah. But I'm going to say, Daryl, and this could be controversial, I don't think we've seen the last of Germany at an international competition.
I'm sure they'll be back in another one. But we have seen the last of them at World Cup 20.
We sure have.
Are you ready to talk Group E?
Am I?
It's the afternoon's games. That sounds like maybe you're not.
It's more so that there was a lot of drama from those first 2 games.
Yeah.
This one played out a little bit more like maybe we thought it would.
I would agree. Okay, so if you're not ready for the sort of Brazil-Serbia and Switzerland-Costa Rica games to be spoiled, then again, look away now. I know
look away?
It's a joke. Some people have mentioned they don't like the spoiler warnings. For everybody who mentions who emails us and says we don't like the spoiler warnings, just remember there are people out there who have asked for them and need them. And it means that they can listen to segments of the show knowing that future games won't be spoiled. So they're there for a reason. Okay, you ready? Brazil beat Serbia 2-0.
Yep.
Brazil beat Serbia 2-0. They finished top of the group. Switzerland tied Costa Rica 2-2.
Yes.
They finished second in the group.
They did.
That's how it went down. Let's start with the big name matchup. I think it's fair to say that because Neymar played in this game. Brazil versus Serbia, 2-0.
Yes. Now, many people were concerned. We got a lot of tweets coming in about what was your emotional state and emotional well-being when Marcelo was subbed off in the 8th minute. So, how are you doing?
Well, what people don't know is that I also love Felipe Luis.
We both do. The baby gazelle?
For very different reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, not just because he runs like your baby gazelle, but because Marcelo is like your fun friend that you do fun stuff with. Felipe Luis is your sensible friend who you could turn to in a time of crisis, and he would have the answers.
I would say your sensible, no-nonsense friend
No-nonsense
sort of is
friend.
like when you're like, maybe one more beer, he's the one who like slaps it out of your hand. It's like, no. Or maybe one more step over.
Give me your car keys.
Yes. And then in this case, one more step over, no, give me the ball.
So this did literally happen, right?
Yep.
For those who are unaware, Marcelo, back spasms, it was reported, had to sub out quite early. He's replaced at left back by the equally capable but in a very different way. Felipe Luis, Atletico Madrid, no-nonsense left back. And what Taylor's alluding to is we think this had a positive effect on Neymar's game, Neymar's performance in this game.
Yeah, it felt like there were multiple. It felt like there were multiple situations in which Neymar would be like doing the kind of stand on the ball, wait for the Serbian player to commit, and Felipe Luis would come in and clap at him, or like audibly scream for the ball. And then he would get the ball, and then there would be a quick little combination with Neymar. Neymar would get the ball back. One time it led to a shooting opportunity. One time it led to a cross. But it felt like he was kind of reminding Neymar, like, "Hey man, we got to keep this going. We got to get it going." So it felt sort of like he was reminding him it wasn't the Neymar show; it was the Brazil show.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I would also say though, even if Marcelo had stayed
or the
in,
Brazil show,
I think it's a room in the trunk of your car. I think Neymar was ready to give this type of performance anyway. I really think in the first game, where we were really concerned about his selfishness against Switzerland, a lot of that was him trying to prove a point. I really think he came into this knowing I can draw people in, then I can let the ball go, and that's the best use of my Neymarness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, and It's not, to be clear, it's not as though I think he wants like the spotlight and the attention. I just think that that's the way he plays.
Yeah.
And I say that because no matter what he does, he's going to get the spotlight and the attention. When Thiago Silva scores off of the corner, the replay shows Neymar celebrating, not Thiago Silva celebrating. It shows Neymar first, then Thiago Silva.
This is very similar to yesterday. Marcos Rojo scores the winner for Argentina, but the cameras follow Leo Messi around.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean,
they should be focusing on the coach. They should be focusing on the guy that scored the goal.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Neymar definitely is the one who... That was really funny. Neymar is the one who, like, if they win, it's going to be Neymar and Brazil win. Like, he definitely wants that type of attention, but I think he's going to get it no matter what. So if you can find players who are going to bring that next level out of him or bring him into more productivity versus more flash, I think that can only benefit Brazil.
They have harnessed Neymar. They've harnessed the power of Neymar. He's like, wind energy.
Yeah. And even like, if you compare...
He's going around in circles, but something good comes of it.
Yeah. Exactly. That works. And it ends up being a usable commodity in the form of goals.
There we go.
But before we get to the goals, the final point I wanted to make is, like, we talk about the France-Denmark game from yesterday, I think, where it was like France would have the ball.
I deleted that from my hard drive.
I mean, as well you should. I left it in only for this point. That like they would be like the French left back would get it, play it to the center back, out to the right back, put his foot on it, and then slowly it would move back. And I think the difference, there are many big differences between Brazil and France. But on the day, I think it was like the 33rd minute, something like that, Neymar gets the ball out wide. He does like a step over and pulls into Serbian players, takes a touch, and then pings a crossfield ball straight to the feet of, I think, Fagner.
It's probably Fagner.
Yeah, and he settles it right away. And then Brazil have switched the ball effectively in 3 seconds versus 15 seconds. And that makes a massive difference when you're attacking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but let's talk about the first goal.
Let's do it.
Brazil's first goal. Serbia were playing what I'm going to call a 4-2-3-1. I think, I've forgotten the coach's name, I apologise. I think he was trying to split the difference between, we've got to win this game, right? Serbia needed a win to go through. That was the only way it was happening for them. And if we open ourselves up too much, then Brazil are coming through those gaps.
Yep.
So I think what he did, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, the attacking midfielder, replaced Milivojevic as central defensive midfield. And I think he was hoping to get the shape of having two defensive midfielders with Matic and SMS, Milinkovic-Savic, but then hopefully they could break with Milinkovic-Savic.
Yeah.
That sound right?
Yeah, I think so.
So they often had 4 defenders, 2 defensive midfielders, and then some other midfielders around. They had a lot of numbers in the middle to block Brazil's path to goal. But Brazil found a way. In a way that Germany couldn't against Korea, in a way that Mexico couldn't against Sweden, Brazil found a way, and the first goal is maybe one of the best examples.
Yes, absolutely. Because like what we were talking about with Toni Kroos dropping deep and then expecting players to come with him, that isn't always going to work. Certainly Korea didn't bite on that. I don't think Serbia would have either. But I do think that when you've got the kind of lethal attacking options that Brazil have, you can have Gabriel Jesus instead of holding central. He can not run into the channel a la Timo Werner, but he can drift over a little bit and bump into a defender along the way. That defender is going to be aware that, oh, their attacker's just bumped into me. He's moving across. I'll follow him. And in the lead up to this goal, both of the center backs are tracking Gabriel Jesus. He pulls both of them out of the middle, and it leaves a giant gap for Paulinho to occupy.
And Paulinho is next to Kostic, who's Serbia's left winger. The little I know about Kostic, plays for Schalke, maybe Hamburg.
You know more than I do.
He plays for Hamburg,
maybe
I think.
not.
He is not particularly defensively known, right? So in some ways, he's the guy to exploit, right? So Paulinho, seeing this gap that Jesus has temporarily created, darts through the middle of it. Felipe Coutinho is on the ball in midfield watching all of this, plays the ball over the top into the path of Paulinho. Paulinho, one bounce, toe poke over the keeper? Or past the keeper?
I'm going to say a flick over
Okay, we'll give Paulinho the credit. A flick over the keeper to make it 1-0 Brazil. But the thing I'm most excited about for Brazil in all this is that when we rewatched it, you see a lot of eye contact between Jesus, between Paulinho, and between Coutinho. They're all looking at each other. This is definitely, if not like drawn up on the training ground and played, it's definitely planned in the moment between the three of them. They are working together in a combo to open space, get someone through that space, get the ball through that space, 1-0 Brazil.
And we didn't draw it up this way, but it is a perfect contrast with Germany, where it felt like Germany was all... Timo Werner will get the ball and he'll try something. Mesut Ozil will get the ball and he'll try to play it in. This guy will get that. This guy will do this. It just felt very much like, okay, we've got one part and that's the part of the plan we have. Whereas Brazil, it felt like, to your point, they've practiced stuff. They have kind of rhythms that they're looking for and sequences that they're looking for when one of them presents itself. Paulinho, like as you said, like they make eye contact, but he doesn't look around. He doesn't gesture. He just sees the spot and then goes. And Coutinho is on it. Coutinho plays it. As soon as Paulinho is going, Coutinho is in. And it speaks to they have they have clearly set up plans to deal with bunkered defenses who do not want to give space.
Yeah.
They find a way to create space.
It finishes 2-0, though.
It does.
Because Brazil score...
Speaking of creating space.
From a corner kick. I want to break down this corner kick in a second because I know that you kind of figured out what happened, right? But I think it's worth noting Neymar's role in the build-up to this goal, right? So this is, 5 minutes before they score from this corner kick in the second half. There's that moment where Neymar does the behind-the-leg control. He does this famously. He used to do this a lot for Barcelona, where a crossfield ball comes across to him, and instead of just controlling it normally...
He could easily control it with the instep of inside of his left foot, and instead he basically plants his left foot, brings his right foot around so it's behind his heel, and settles with the inside of his right foot.
And this is the sort of thing that sometimes annoys me because you could argue it serves no purpose in the moment. It's just showing off. But I think you could see here Neymar starting to intimidate Serbia.
Yep.
And from this moment, Neymar then, after this, is like lifting the ball over people's heads, but then passing it afterwards. There's a lot of these moments of just Neymar punishing Serbia, essentially. Yep. And I think when you're 1-0 up, in a weird way, it kind of works. And in this way, Serbia end up conceding this corner kick, and it's served in, ready for Thiago Silva to take advantage.
And I'll say, I know this is very goofy, psychology from a 14-year-old, but I always had this idea growing up that the first shot of the game, even if it was a really good shot that your teammate would get off and it just went wide, it was a really good save. If I had a shot that was going top corner, that it was the best shot I've ever had, and the keeper pushed it over, my policy was to always be guys, I'm so sorry. I know it's got to be better. Because I always had this idea of I'm scaring the opponent because they're that was a bad shot. What does a good shot look like from them? And I do feel there's an element of Neymar doing that. Of this little settle is sort of oh, now you're in big, big trouble.
But really
now I'm feeling it. Now I'm going to do a step over and get by you and force the corner.
It's Neymar Jr. time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Thiago Silva with the header.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit going on in the build-up to this header.
Yes. So it's... this play, in my opinion, is designed from start to finish to get on the head of Thiago Silva at the near post.
Okay.
I think most of the Serbian defenders think that it's aiming for Miranda, who's in there. And so when the ball is played in, it's Mitrovic and I forget the other Serbian defender. I apologize. Both of them very much focused on not letting Miranda get a clear header. Mm-hmm. So they're both sort of aggressively pursuing him.
Oh, it's Milinkovic.
Thank you. Yes.
There's Milinkovic-Savic and Milinkovic centre-back. This was Milinkovic centre-back.
Milinkovic centre-back is the screening run. Yeah. It's number 13. I forget which one that is. But basically, they're both pursuing Miranda.
Oh, it's the right
And
back.
so they move out of the near post. And basically, I think they over-pursue. They all end up kind of falling over. And then Thiago Silva, before Neymar has even started to approach the ball, Thiago Silva has sprinted towards that near post. He gets away from Nemanja Matic enough that then when he goes around Milinkovic, basically Thiago Silva uses Milinkovic as a screen.
Milinkovic centre-back.
Yes, and Matic just stops. He can't get there in time. And then I think Milinkovic has no idea that Thiago Silva is coming in, and that's why he's basically uncontested when he puts that header in.
So what we're building towards here is Brazil seem to have almost everything it takes to be the team.
Yep.
I would argue they are the team right now because they looked, anytime Serbia attacked, it looked to me like Casemiro was more than capable of shutting it down. Mm-hmm. They had one moment where Alisson, I think, weirdly palmed across goal.
Yeah.
That caused some trouble.
61st minute, yeah.
Other than that, it was all Brazil shutting Serbia down and Brazil somewhat patiently pulling Serbia apart.
Yeah.
And then it ended with Brazil punishing Serbia and showing off a little bit. This all felt very dangerous to me.
It felt like a team that are finding their groove because you go back to that first game when there was lots of criticism, there were lots of question marks around, is this Brazil team going to be able to click? Is Chiche really the real deal? And I think Chiche stuck with what he wanted to do. He stuck with more or less the exact same lineup throughout, except for making a couple little tiny tweaks. But generally speaking, it feels like Brazil had that foundational layer, and now they're building upon it in a way that is productive and positive versus a lot of teams who are sort of oh no, that foundation didn't work, let's re-pour the foundation, and they're trying stuff in the middle of a tournament.
Who did Brazil play in the round of 16?
Brazil will be playing Mexico. Yes.
And that game happened now. I want that game to happen right now.
Mexico, Brazil, and then Sweden, Switzerland, I believe.
Switzerland. Mm-hmm. In the Sweet Swixteen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's talk about how Switzerland got there.
I don't know if we should. I feel like that might be the low point of the show. Maybe we should just end it right here.
One man's low point is another man's high point.
True.
So Switzerland just needed a draw, if I understand correctly, against Costa Rica. and that is what they got. Although they led twice, were equalised on twice. We have to say we didn't watch this game with anything like the same detail as Brazil-Serbia. It was on the lower screen. We've gone back and watched the goals, though, so we can definitely talk about those goals. So let's get to it.
All right. Should we start with the first goal?
Yeah, let's mix it up and go chronological.
All right.
Okay, first goal. I'm going to call it a Jamali smash for
right.
Switzerland to make it 1-0.
I'm going to call it a double yo-yo, my friend.
A what?
A double yo-yo.
Double yo-yo. Oh, because there's a lot of Swiss counter-pressing
Yep.
as Costa Rica tried to break. It's at least 2, maybe 3 times Costa Rica tried to break and the Swiss shut it down. Yeah.
Yep. Swiss, the second or third one being the final one. Shaqiri gets the ball back.
A lot of Shaqiri in the counter-press. Yeah.
Wins it, plays it wide to Lichtsteiner. It's a Lichtsteiner ball all the way across to Briel Embolo, who heads it down. Then you get your Jamali smash.
Jamali smash, 1-0 Switzerland. And all apologies to Switzerland Costa Rica fans. For obvious reasons, our eyes were on the Brazil-Serbia game.
Yeah. I think I had one eye up and one eye down, as much as that's possible. Because I did, as I said yesterday, I thought there was a chance that Costa Rica might get something in this game. And then when Switzerland went ahead, I was like, oh, well, so much for that.
Yeah.
But I was wrong. And right. It was weird.
So, equaliser. Kendall Waston, our friend from MLS and the Hex, equalises off a corner kick.
Yeah, welcome to Kendall Waston, Manuel Akanji.
Yes, I didn't enjoy this goal because Manuel Akanji, Swiss, youngish, 22 years old, centre-back.
22 is young.
It is, especially for a centre-back, right? So I've been really up on him this tournament.
Also for a human.
He hadn't really put a foot wrong, yeah, right? I remember being 22 and telling people, I need to make decisions, and everyone laughing at me. So Manuel Akanji, I'm sure he's come up against big guys like Kendall Waston before, but Kendall Waston definitely puts a CONCACAF move on him that maybe Akanji hasn't seen before, playing in the Swiss League and then briefly in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, basically the corner coming in, and Kendall Waston keeps a little bit of separation between himself and Akanji, who is marking him. Instead, Kendall Waston uses one of his own teammates as a screen and a Swiss defender as a screen. So when those two go, then Kendall Waston is charging to meet it.
I'm going to say the screens are not the most important tool that Kendall Waston uses here, though.
His forearm, would that be the number one? Yeah, but I think it's especially effective, the kind of forearm. He basically pushes him in the side, pushes Akanji in the side. That's why he's able to get up in the air without much contest
no resistance
there. But I think part of that is because Akanji doesn't want to get too close to Waston. He doesn't want to get beat on the run. So he's waiting for Waston to kind of come into where Akanji is. And if you're waiting, then you're reacting. And if you're reacting, that you're not being proactive.
Yes. Yeah, I think of Akanji as a reader in many ways. He's hoping to figure something out on the go.
Yeah.
And sometimes readers get bullied by the big guys.
So 1-1. It does not finish that way.
Smashed Akanji's glasses and scored a header.
Yeah, and then said nerd, and then he walked away.
So
you're laughing an awful lot for a man wearing glasses, just saying.
Oh, yeah, all right. So Switzerland go 2-1 ahead with a Dermich goal. I'm going to be generous and call this a long crossfield pass from Zakaria on the run.
But again, this comes from Costa Rica being dispossessed near midfield. It launches the Swiss counterattack. And then, yes, it's a fortunate ball.
I think Zakaria is going for Briel Embolo.
Yes.
Yeah, he's going for Briel Embolo in the middle, plays it a little bit too much behind Embolo, but Dermich is coming in late at the back post, but more towards the top of the area.
Yep.
I don't know who the Costa Rican defender is, but he falls over scrambling to get to this, leaving Dermich an easy goal. Did you notice Dermich cover his mouth in the celebration?
Oh, yeah, I certainly did.
That's definitely a reference to, I'm not saying anything politically controversial.
Yes, I would say so.
It is. You did the same thing? All right. But Switzerland don't get a win. And Costa Rica do get a point, which again, as we mentioned with Korea, it's kind of important to leave the World Cup not going home empty-handed.
Yes.
Yeah? So Costa Rica have not one, but 2 penalty kick shouts towards the end of this game.
They do. One is correctly, I would say, ruled out for offside. The other one is a bit of Joel Campbell veteran wisdom.
Veteran?
Yes.
Joel Campbell's what, 25 years old?
Hey, it's still veteran CONCACAF. Veteran, it's not even that. It's a veteran forward knowing what's coming. Because,
do you remember, I pop quizzed you during this game, how many international caps do you think Joel Campbell has for Costa Rica at the age of 25?
And it was what, like 75, something like that?
79 was the graphic that came on the screen. He's going to end up with like 500 caps.
Yeah, and that's lovely. But I think he's already established some knowledge here because because you look at the way this penalty comes about, and it's a very aggressive challenge on Joel Campbell in like the lead up to the penalty, and I think Campbell knows, he's coming after me now.
Was it Zakaria with the initial challenge?
Yes, and then he tries to make up for it because now Campbell has evaded that initial challenge to some extent. He definitely gets a little bit of a hit, but gets in behind Zakaria. Zakaria now desperate to make up, and Campbell, I think, recognizes the angle I'm at. I might be able to play this in, but I bet he's going to run me over. And so he definitely leans into the challenge, but that's kind of what you do as a striker. It's not a dive, but it is a crafty awareness of this guy's going to hit me. I'm going to make sure he hits me in the box. I'm going to make sure I fall over, and I'm going to make sure the referee gives us a penalty.
I think Zakaria's plan was to foul him outside the box, and he just got it wrong by an inch. Also,
so.
Yeah. All right, and then obviously Brian Ruiz steps up and scores
Kobe Jones' favorite goal of all time.
Kobe Jones really enjoyed this.
He really did.
Brian Ruiz hits the bar with his penalty kick. The ball bounces down and it hits Swiss goalkeeper Jan Sommer in the back of the head. Kobe Jones, I think, thinks it's the greatest goal ever scored at the World Cup.
Petkovic, the Swiss coach, thought it was kind of good. He saw a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a smirk.
So he had what I called a wry smile, which would have been, I think, somewhat fitting in terms of sometimes your luck doesn't go, but there's a chuckle at the end, right?
Yeah.
So I think everybody was
stifled chuckle at the end.
Stifled chuckle. Yeah. But I'm with Kobe Jones and Petkovic here. Because it doesn't knock Switzerland out, it doesn't really damage them in any way, right?
No, because they
wouldn't have finished top anyway.
No, because they knew Brazil were beating Serbia. They knew Serbia weren't going to overtake Brazil, so they knew they were safe in second place.
But Brazil always had the goal difference, either at 2-0 and 2-1 at this point, so it doesn't matter, right? Switzerland stand up second. So Kobe Jones and Petkovic, we can just chuckle at this, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm not. Even Jan Sommer, I think, just had I guess this is how it goes.
Yeah.
Shall we move on and preview the final group stage finale?
Yes, let's do it.
So Group G and Group H gets decided tomorrow. It's the last time we'll have to try watching two screens at once.
It is. Yeah. Not in the order you just said, though. Group H going first for whatever reason.
Group H going first because they knew it would be more interesting?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
So Group H is the more interesting. So let's get to previewing this. It's Japan versus Poland, 10 a.m. Fox Sports 1, and Senegal versus Colombia, 10 a.m. Fox. The situation is Japan are top, 4 points plus 1 goal difference. Senegal is second, 4 points plus 1 goal difference. Colombia are third, 3 points plus 2 goal difference. Poland are dunzo.
Right.
So I calculate Japan just need a draw. Japan ties Poland. They are 100% through because whatever happens in the other game, Senegal and Colombia can't both get enough points to catch them.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about Japan, Poland first.
Sure. And it seems like there is not as much pressure on them as there was in those first two games. Obviously, because as you said, they only need that draw. And I say that because seems like they have a full team. They don't have many injury issues. They've got a few question marks around, say, Kawashima, the goalkeeper. Does he start after making that mistake that allowed Sadio Mane to get a goal? I'm not going to say necessarily he earned a goal, but he definitely got his name on the score sheet.
Kawashima punched it into Mane's
knees, that'll do it.
Right. And he also had that save behind the goal
that was interesting.
In the first game. So, but really that's the only question around Japan, right? Because we expect, say, Osako to start. I think he's been really impressive in terms of
Okazo, but sure.
Did I?
No, it's Osako. I'm just kidding.
You're just messing with me. It's that time of the day. We love him because he works hard. He comes and shows for the ball, but then he's also dangerous when he gets in behind. Kagawa, always good. We know Kagawa's quality. Inui has caught the eye from the left, coming inside with his right foot.
3 straight goals, or 3 goals in 3 games. Not bad.
And my new hero is Japan's left back, Nagatomo. Loves the overlap, Nagatomo. Keep your eye on him.
Pazdan hears you over there for Poland, and he's a little sad.
Let's briefly speak about Poland then. So maybe the threat to Japan is that this is Poland with the pressure off.
Yeah.
Because the pressure looked on in the previous game. I'm not sure Poland handled it well.
No.
Is that fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say.
So now they probably have Glick, their main man at centre-back, will be back. And there's no pressure on them in terms of going to the round of 16 because it's not happening. I wouldn't be surprised if Poland play relaxed, some nice football while they're relaxed.
I agree. I mean, obviously they don't want to get blitzed and lose all 3 games and it comes out looking like a catastrophe, but I still think you'll see a little bit of experimentation with a solid group of the core players that we know and love. I would expect Kemal Glick to return. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in a back 3. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Lewandowski and Arkadiusz Milik up top. So you get a little bit of the defensive solidarity, but then you get multiple attacking options so that Poland can theoretically get some goals.
Here's my prediction. Lewandowski scores, doesn't really celebrate because he's a very competitive man and he doesn't like not going to the round of 16.
Yes.
All right, to definitely the more contentious or competitive game. Senegal versus Colombia. This is 10 a.m. on Big Fox.
Yep.
What a situation.
Mm-hmm. So we calculated as Senegal essentially just need the draw just to go through because they're still ahead of Colombia, as you said, by 1 point. So a draw gets them there. Obviously, they probably want to not necessarily have to rely on holding out for that draw. So I'm not saying they're just going to sit back, but that's their situation as it is. Colombia need the win.
Colombia need the win. So it's actually quite basic then, right? Senegal good with a draw. Colombia need the win.
I think unless Japan lose and then you go down to goal difference. And
let's not go there.
Let's not do that.
I didn't bring my mathematical calculator.
Fair.
All right, so let's just think about this game because I am excited for this game. There's lots to be excited about. Can I start with Colombia?
Sure.
Colombia finally figured out that pairing Davison Sanchez and Jerry Mina is the way to go at centre-back.
And we, most importantly, learned that a Y in Spanish means J. So Jerry. Yes. Jerry is correct, not Jerry.
So thank you to all the people that let us know. It is not Jerry Mina, it is Jerry Mina. So Mina and Sanchez at the back. But the other partnership I've got my eye on, will Peckerman go with a James Rodriguez and Quintero double playmaker system? Because this is what he did in the previous game, right? He let Quintero have the central role and he let James play sort of wide left, but also with license to roam. And it really got a lot of stuff firing. Quintero hitting reverse passes all over the field. Falcao being on the end of things. It was really exciting. I want to see it again.
I want to as well. I'm curious to see how long we see it. I think the final 30 minutes of this game could be especially interesting because, say, Colombia go ahead. James Rodriguez and Barrios are both on yellows. So does Peckerman take the risk of keeping James in to see out the game, risking a second yellow, then he's suspended for the knockout round?
If they need a result, then yes.
What I'm saying is if they're ahead, does he pull out James? Does he change it up? Does he go defensive? And then does he kind of give the front foot to Senegal?
Interesting. All right, speaking of Senegal.
Worth noting real quick, Aguilar out, so it probably will be Barrios starting, maybe Sanchez starting as well because Sanchez returns from his red card
Sanchez,
suspension.
who was sent off. Yeah, he is back. All right, for Senegal. The one area of worry that we spotted against Japan is that Ouagué and Ismail Assar, who form Senegal's right flank, right back and right winger, both very young. They got exploited by Nagatomo with that overlap. Colombia's left side is James Rodriguez. So maybe he has the craft and wisdom to make something happen over on that side. But flip it around, maybe Ismail Assar is attacking so much and Ouagué is joining in so much that James ends up having to work back down the left flank. So Senegal's right, Colombia's left is the flank to watch.
And I would say the other battle to watch, Koulibaly has already handled Robert Lewandowski. How does he handle Radamel Falcao? So Koulibaly in center defense for Senegal, I would say the leader of that defense versus Radamel Falcao. That's a battle that will be epic.
Certainly the most famous of those defenders. Yeah. And left back, right-footed left back, Sabali, always worth keeping an eye on.
Yep.
All right, moving on to Group G, which is later in the day. I'm doing this right? 2 p.m. Eastern. The game we have to confess we will not be paying too much attention to is Panama versus Tunisia because both of these teams are eliminated.
Yes.
Right? The only reason to maybe watch is maybe Panama get their Korea moment or their Costa Rica moment where they finally get themselves something at this World Cup. Not least because, special for Panama, this is their first ever World Cup.
Yes.
So we saw the TV announcers in tears when the Panama national anthem was played at the World Cup. We saw the celebrations when Gomez scored that consolation goal against England. Everything that Panama does at the World Cup, it's the first time they do it. So even a point is huge for Panama.
Yep. I think a key part of this for Panama will be marking out Wabi Kazri, the
Tunisian attacker.
As long as he starts, maybe Tunisia take the opportunity to experiment. But I think, Panama will certainly be up for this, trying to get at least a point, their first point ever. For Tunisia, the opportunity there for Panama could be their set-piece defending remains questionable at best. Yeah, so I look forward to seeing how Panama try to exploit that, if they're able to exploit that. And then if Tunisia are as up for this game as Panama, given that they too are already eliminated.
The big game, such as it is England v Belgium, where we're in a weird situation, right?
Yep.
England are top on fair play. Both teams have 6 points, similar goal difference, similar goals scored. But the weird thing is that there's a lot of talk about maybe it's better to finish second in Group G and not finish top. Could you explain why, Taylor?
Sure. I mean, I don't have the brackets in front of me, but I remember from looking at them that if you finish second place, the one you're going into looks significantly more manageable. I would say the only quote-unquote big team that is going to be in there will be Spain.
Yep, I'm looking at the bracket right now over on my screen.
What we got? So if you're runner-up...
If you're runner-up, we don't know which team you'll play from Group H, but the other teams on your side of the bracket will be Spain, Russia, Croatia, Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland.
Yeah.
If you win the group, again, don't know which team you'll play from Group H, but the other teams in your side of the bracket are Uruguay, Portugal, France, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico. Definitely there's an easier side of that draw, at least in theory.
Yes.
Gareth Southgate seems to be feigning ignorance of this whole thing. No one's going to deliberately lose this game.
He has to, right? He can't be like, yeah, we're not going to try.
Yeah, we're going to throw it. No one's going to be deliberately losing this game. But I think what you'll see is both teams will rest all kinds of players.
Yes.
There's already reports out of the Belgian camp that Lukaku is injured, Dries Mertens is injured, Eden Hazard is injured. I would bet good money that those injuries are very, very tiny and they could play if they wanted to. But Belgium will take the chance to rest as many big players as possible. And then if you get a result, you get a result. But at least you don't injure Kevin De Bruyne to finish top of a group that it's not really advantageous to finish top of.
Speaking of, I'd be surprised if he plays as well. The one thing they can't really mess around with too much is their center backs. They have 5. 2 have been injured the entire tournament so far. So whether or not those 2 come back and get some minutes, we shall see. But that would be one area where I'm guessing they're going to have to go full strength, more or less.
Oh, yeah, so it could be Vincent Kompany or Thomas Vermaelen getting a run out if either of them is yet healthy.
Yes.
For England, I've seen rumours that Eric Dyer will start ahead of Jordan Henderson in the English Busquets role. That might make sense. I'd be surprised if Harry Kane starts, so maybe Danny Welbeck or Jamie Vardy gets a run out. The question for me is Marcus Rashford.
Yeah.
Could Marcus Rashford start ahead of Raheem Sterling, or is it better to give Raheem Sterling another chance to get on the score sheet?
It's anyone's call, specifically Gareth Southgate's.
Yeah.
I think we will see Raheem Sterling get a rest. I think we'll see a lot of resting players for England. Maybe John Stones as well. That would be a big one to switch out.
Gary Cahill could start in the middle instead of John Stones. That's my guess, based on the English centre-back depth chart.
And the only other thing we're fairly confident about when it comes to England is that Dele Alli appears to be still recovering from that thigh injury, / maybe they didn't want to play him anyway in this game, so why risk it?
But as long as Ruben Loftus-Cheek plays, I'll be watching. All right, so there's your preview for Thursday's games, the Group G and Group H finale, but not in that order. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Are you willing to do it again tomorrow?
I suppose so.
Then I'll meet you back here. Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.